The Ukrainian military has not yet fought with or captured North Korean soldiers in Russia's Kursk Oblast, said Vadim Miznik, a spokesperson for Ukraine's operational tactical group Siversk. The first North Korean troops were to be deployed in the combat zone yesterday, according to Ukrainian intelligence. Asked whether North Korean troops have been spotted on the battlefield, Miznik said that intelligence data confirms that the Russian command is redeploying North Korean troops closer to the front in Kursk Oblast. Yet Ukrainian forces have not yet encountered them. The U.S. said that North Korean troops are being dispatched to Kursk Oblast, a Russian border region facing a Ukrainian offensive. While the White House did specify in what capacity they would be deployed, Ukraine and South Korea said that at least some North Korean troops would be used in combat. Previously, Ukraine's military intelligence said that Russia is preparing to deploy 12,000 North Korean soldiers, including 500 officers and 3 generals. Russia and North Korea have initially dismissed the reports, but recently turned to more evasive rhetoric as evidence of the troops' dispatch mounted. The 54th Brigade captured a rare Russian T-90S tank, the export model of the T-90, in the Siversk direction. The tank is fully operational. Soldiers of the 2nd Mechanized Battalion, K2 of the 54th Mechanized Brigade, named after Hetman Ivan Mazepa, captured a Russian export-intended T-90S tank. Oleksandr Afanasyev, the battalion's tank crew member, shared the video on Instagram. Armor researcher Andriy Tarasenko details in his Telegram channel that the most noticeable difference between the T-90S and the T-90A is the trapezoidal Indian DZ block, which is installed instead of the useless Shtora searchlight. The second difference is that all the inscriptions inside the tank are written in English. The captured T-90S is equipped with an anti-drone grill, electronic countermeasure means, television surveillance cameras, and a homemade trawl. It is worth reminding that this is not the first time that Russian-made export-intended tanks have been used on the battlefields of the Russian-Ukrainian war, as they were first spotted back in 2022. According to the OSINT project Oryx, the Russians lost at least 9 T-90S. Russia has lost 650,000 troops, including killed and wounded, in the war against Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview with Times of India. Over 690,000 Russian military personnel were put out of action since the beginning of its full-scale invasion in Ukraine on February 24, 2022, according to the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces. Besides the wounded and killed, this figure also includes those who were captured. Estonian intelligence estimated that Russia could lose up to 40,000 personnel in October. Russia itself has killed a lot of Russians. A lot of mobilized Russian soldiers were killed by the Russian army itself because they were afraid to attack, to perish under the bullets, or to be wounded. So they retreated and then were killed by their army, Zelensky told Times of India. This is their law of war, Zelensky said. Zelensky added that Russia also does not pick up its dead soldiers from the battlefield, leaving their bodies to rot on the ground. Speaking about the situation at the front, the president said that in eastern Ukraine, the Russian army is advancing by employing human attack waves, throwing its soldiers into a meat grinder. In recent months, Russian troops have been conducting a grinding advance in eastern Ukraine, making territorial gains while incurring heavy losses. Russian troops set their sights on Pokrovsk and Chasiv Yar, among other targets, with the latter located on a higher ground, after capturing Avdiivka in February. The higher ground could give Russian troops a key strategic advantage in attacks on other towns in Donetsk Oblast. FPV drone operators from the 5th Assault Brigade struck a group of Russian motorcyclists in the Bakhmut direction, neutralizing and dispersing them. Russian forces in Ukraine are now resorting to using motorbikes on the battlefield, highlighting their severe lack of basic armored vehicles. These bikes, meant for civilian use, offer little to no protection against the artillery, drones, and ambushes they face, leaving soldiers dangerously exposed. This desperate move underscores the growing strain on Russian logistics and equipment supplies, as frontline units are sent in without even the minimal safety of armored transport. It's a striking example of just how unprepared and stretched Russia's forces have become in the ongoing conflict. Sergei Chemezov, head of Rostec Corporation, warned of the threat of collapse of Russian production sector due to the rising key rate. He made this prediction 2 days before the Russian central bank raised the key rate again last Friday.
A serious obstacle to further industrial growth is the record high key interest rate. It is simply not profitable for companies to use mutual funds. If we continue to work like this, we'll end up with most companies becoming bankrupt. Unfortunately, our export of high-tech products is also declining. Because if we sign contracts for products with a production cycle of over a year, naturally the maximum advance payment we receive is 30 to 40%. The remaining funds necessary to produce this product must be borrowed. And with such an interest rate, all the profit that we anticipate gets eaten up by the interest payments we have to pay the bank.
And a minor fecal problem in the greatest country in the world, as they say. Moscow telegram channels report that the sewage system in Moscow broke down. A fountain, the height of a residential building, is seen in one of Moscow's districts. A shit show, literally. Russian cities are facing severe infrastructure breakdowns, with sewage systems overflowing and streets literally drowning in wastewater. Unlike Ukrainian cities bombarded daily by Russian forces, these Russian cities suffer without a single strike, crumbling from within. It's a harsh, ironic twist, almost poetic justice, as they confront chaos and neglect at home while fueling destruction abroad. Georgian opposition demands new elections under international oversight at a large rally in Tbilisi. President Salome Zurabishvili addressed the crowd. "You did not lose the election. Your voice was stolen, and they tried to steal your future. No one has the right to do that." Thousands have already joined the protests. Georgia's pro-Russian government has stolen the election through massive fraud. Hungarian Prime Minister and Putin's puppet Viktor Orban was met with boos in Tbilisi as protests erupt following Georgia's likely rigged parliamentary elections. Opposition supporters are gathering to demand fair representation.
Harika. Gadajcie.